Welcome back to the Shire. We are finally done with the illnesses that came through the Shire in the month of February. I apologize for the interruption in content, but Gandalf the Jay, Air Racer, my wife, and myself needed to get healthy. So, part two of the Rolex Bridge. We left you off seeing the completed plexiglass structure, and now we're going to deck it out. We're going to deck it out with all the Rolex placarding. You're going to see some of the tricks and tips that I did on my end. Steal my ideas, man. I just love the way that it came out. So let's get to it. Let's see how we progress. All right. We got wonderful graphics quality printing from the Canon. I love this printer. Laserjet. Just got to get it right here. I want all of it, but I don't want more of it, and I don't want white. Might be time to finally change this blade. All right. As my father would say. All right. And what do we have here for you? Oh, it's just awesome. Just awesome is what it is. All right, only 4 more. All right, so the idea here is, again, this is just a platform that makes something light for me. I don't really care. No one's going to see any of this plastic. So yeah, I'm sanding it. I want to create an adhesible surface for this. Thousands of tiny particles. All right, that ought to do the trick. Really scratched up, if you can see that underneath the ring light. Trying not to use the ring light because it creates so much glare, but there you go. Peligroso, peligro, danger, danger. Extremely flammable. I say let's use it then. I'm going to experiment with a piece of cardstock and see what happens when we spray adhesive on it. Need to be, okay, there you go. So the short answer is you need to be really light-handed with it. So let's be light-handed with it and see what we get. I don't know if you can see, but there is a super light coat of adhesive underneath there. I mean a super light coat. So let's get to it. Beautiful thing. Número 2. Wow, that's gonna be special. Oh, that is gonna be sweet. Oh man, I'm already excited. I can't wait to get the other ones out. Oh my gosh. I think we're gonna go with that one. I don't know why. Wow. Well, I have to say so. Sorry about the glare, but try and keep it out of the glare. That's awesome. And there we are with our preliminary product at face value for what the signage should look like. Not entirely thrilled with the hue of the second one. I might go right ahead and peel that guy right off of there and put a different one on there. As you can slightly see some differences in the light now. But again, just that could be facing the backside. And again, it's meant to be, again, the Rolex signs are classic. They're timeless. See what I did there? So anyway, sorry again, the bad jokes that I mix in there. I'm so happy. And like now we're like, I don't know, maybe we're 30, 40% done. All right, as we continue to evolve in the project, one of the things I had hoped for, but certainly wasn't necessarily in anticipation of, is that there's no need to reinforce this structure. It does exactly what I thought it would do. This is just awesome. So there's not going to be any need to reinforce any of these pieces in between here. This is going to get covered in cardstock in the same color. And then what we've noted already now is inside, and I do apologize the glare because there's really no other way to do this because it's a piece of plexiglass. There's a mark inside of here, trust me, where, and this is not a flagman obviously, but we need a 32nd scale figure to figure this out, where a flagman would be on a flagman tower here. There'll be some steps coming up and a flagman being able to lean over and wave a flag at the cars. So that is going to be a nice feature where we will take the same cardstock and we will build a little set of steps inside. There'll be a door coming from this side right here that you'll be able to envision on the track, where there'll be a picture imposed also on cardstock and then glued into place. And it will complete the picture of making its way up there. So we're going to work on a little bit of measurements on that. And we're also going to work on the bridge connections down below, which are already formed by the trackmate legs, if you allow the expression for now. They're obviously just the rails that run upright, and we're going to encase those. So we're going to pick some foam from our trusty box of foam down here, and we're going to cut this into some shapes to wrap around there. All right, our folks from the Porsche team and Parts About are going to have to get their way out of the way safely so that we can conduct this without any casualties. So what we want to do now is we're going to encase this right here. We're going to encase this with the foam, and then we're going to cardstock the foam, and then we're going to cardstock the side of this. And so the goal is to reach just the edge of the bottom of this, knowing that we will continuously be able to remove this when necessary, but the bottom will be semi-permanent in terms of surrounding this. Again, this PCB board is very sturdy. It has two connections down low here to the low voltage wiring for the gantry to pick up all the blips underneath it, but there's no reason why we can't engineer something very nicely without messing with these wires. They don't touch. You don't want them to touch down there. They'll ground out. Obviously, if they do, they'll short out, pardon me. And all we're going to do is simply surround this. So we have the ability to, either using our knife, or even better yet, I can use the I can use the soldering iron to even burn in some patterns, so I could make a rather large piece here on both sides of this to really make it look beefy if I want to, making a platform and then something that comes up to the inside, and I can encase all of that, and then we can make it look as if, again, as realistic as possible. We're going to go for 1.5. Where are my little stabs? Cardstock will make up the difference. Save yourself the time when you're working with this kind of material. You're making it at scale. No one is going to notice whether or not that line is crooked right now or not when it's covered in cardstock. You'll know, and if you're that nitpicky about it, well then certainly. But there is a fun component of this, but then while the journey is always welcome and half the fun, we want to get to the end result because we want the gratification of knowing what we put together. All right, let's complete the exercise again, just like we did before. You'll see a neat little trick. You'll see a neat little trick when I go to wrap around the, actual gantry post itself. It's not really important from this perspective as long as it's relatively flat, right? Whatever you want to do, that might loosen it up. It might not even remove pieces, but there's a way to do it. So that's not a bad block to start with. So we've got a piece on the bottom that's 2 1/4 by 1/2 inch. And that piece, while it's 2 1/4 by 1/2 inch, it's actually located up against the edge of the track on one side. So we can find the middle of this at 3 3/4. Puts ourselves at 1 7/8. I can put the blade right side up here. So there's our mark. There's our mark right there. And so if we need 2 1/2, what did I say? We're going to go 2 1/4. We're going to go 2 1/4. We're going to go 2 1/4. That's going to be 1 1/8 in either direction. All right, so let's carve out a little bit of this. It doesn't need to go very high, so I'm just going to use the blade depth, if that. It's not a very deep piece that Scott put in there on the top of the track to hold the TrackMate piece in place and screw the screws down into it. So we just want to take off a little bit, not too much. We want this piece of foam to have integrity still throughout the course of, oh, I don't know, the odd chance that somebody runs into it. However unlikely that might be. Okay, that was step one. Now step two, that you're not going to see off camera, is to find the mark in the middle to go ahead and slit this guy to get the track lined up, to get the leg, to get the upright lined up in here. This is just going to be an complete eyeball game. And now is where I need to be very careful, because the goal of the exercise here is to be able to slip this through the leg as if this was the upright of the TrackMate system and slide this into here. So this is what we want. And now here's where things will get a little bit tricky, right? We've got to go ahead and probably cut it all the way to the top, because we've got to slip it through. So we're absolutely going to cut it through to the top, because we have to slip it through. And now where it's going to be just a little bit of trial and error. I don't want to go too far. But I'm going to have to go far enough. I'm going to have to come to the base of this, almost. We just want to peel back a layer of the onion, right? We don't want to slice the whole thing to oblivion. We just want to create one layer of the onion we can peel back. I think it's going to have to occur there, whether I like it or not. Indeed it is. Physics, we can't get away from physics on this. There's no other way to get in there, and that's okay. That's okay if we make these pieces meet and they storybook around, completely around this piece. Keeping in mind, anything that might not fit as planned can easily take the soldering iron right next door here. If I can't get it with some sandpaper, if I can't get it with some other ways to remove it, it's all about making the engineering aspect of this come through. So for example, I'm just going to go ahead now and in recognition, I'm just going to go ahead and make as straight a poke here, knowing that I've got to complete that sort of book style that this is going to slip through, right? There's no other way this is going to work unless I do that. And now we've got a decent try. Let's slip it on. Try and remove as much as I can. Let's get this out of the way. That is not too bad, folks. Obviously still too high. But I'll tell you why it's still too high. There's wires down there. And there's also going to be wires down there for a different reason. Uh-oh. Did I just start to let on the surprise? I think I just started to let in on the surprise. A little chunker for that. Let's see what we got now, folks. Oh, wow. Once again, pretty good, pretty good. This will be joined on this side, obviously, with glue. And wow, otherwise, just a little bit of buttoning up, removing some extra debris there. And then we're going to come around and do the same thing on the other side. And there's our finished piece of foam. Bring you in for a much better look there. Really, we've nailed it. That piece surrounds that perfectly. And then we will go ahead and glue that in place when we're ready. And then we will cardstock it. All right, let's back out a little bit here. And now you can see both pieces are in place. Looking very, very nice. We've surrounded both uprights. Coming together on the opposite sides. That is looking very, very nice. Just another little test fit trick in the building process, right? These are always going to be separate components. And right now, the Rolex gantry part sitting on top of the TrackMate gantry is beautiful, right? It's free floating. It's sitting right on top of Daniel's PCB board. But we're going to encase this in cardstock. So the question is, what kind of distance do we have around these? See, I'm already having trouble with a spare piece of cardstock getting under there. Similarly over here, that's nice. Not so nice. So I'm going to take those blocks off and I'm going to do a little bit of work just to lower them a little bit more than they are. Okay, after about 2 minutes worth of work there, we are just in great shape. We can come right up against the upright with cardstock easily on all 4 sides. So there'll be no problem putting our cardstock pieces in place without the Rolex gantry, obviously. We'll come in and we'll glue these pieces. All right, it's time to let the cat out of the bag here. It's time to let the surprise out, because now we have to deal with the engineering aspects of this. So the fancy schmancy surprise is, so here's the big surprise. We are going to be mounting a reversible camera underneath the bridge. So remember this little hole that I left in the middle here? If you can see that through the glare where my thumb is. Well, I'm going to carve out just a fraction more room inside of this side. And we're going to have this wire slip in here. And we're going to have the ability to have this camera come through here. And we're going to pull back the sheath of the wire just a little bit so that we can make it more maneuverable when it's in place here, because right now it's too tight. But the idea is this will be mounted right here, or I'll have the ability to turn it around and mount it facing back up towards the sweeper. So that's the big surprise, and I can't wait. That is going to be exciting for still frames, for live action, and slow-mo. Additional test fitting here. We're now making our way up. This cord will be buried underneath just like the TrackMate cord will. But what we have to do now is we have to do some tidying up, and we're going to have to also pull back this sheath a little bit and reheat shrink that so that we can have these wires exposed so we have more flexibility, because the idea is when this is under the gantry through the initial hole that we created, we'll be able to lift this up and slide it to either side and face, and we'll use a little bit of, I don't know yet. Maybe we'll create a small amount of stanchion above it so we can flip it around. But when we flip it around, the wire needs to be able to be flexible to face one way versus the other way. And there's just simply too much of this right now in the way to make my way with the little bit that I've left of room to just slide the wire out of that hole. So we're going to do some modifications to this wire. All right, this is where things are starting to get exciting here. We are creating the sleeve for the camera. So we can roughly see that I've pulled back the layers that I want to be able to pivot this around, and we're going to fit this camera into here. The only thing that I am a little bit suspicious about for this camera, even though it fits the application, is this camera is running a little hot. It's running a little hot when it's plugged in. So we're just going to have to see what happens. Not my favorite thing as far as it running hot. Don't want that. I don't want that running hot. That's all I can say. We definitely don't want that running hot. So in these instances here, what I always try and remind myself, never mind remind others, less is more, unless you want to rebuild the part. Right? I can't add foam once I take it away. I can't add foam once I take it away. So let's test fit this here. See what we've got. It'd be helpful if I showed all of you what I got. There we go. That's my test fit right there. Then this guy's going to switch back here, come out the top, and then we'll be able to face the camera in this direction or spin it around in that direction. In the spirit of putting good quality information out there, there was a discussion about using acrylic and how it hangs over the sides and any reflective patterns. But there's something that I want everyone to know, should they try and take on this project, or should someone ask to have something like this made. The TrackMate gantry system is based on infrared technology, the same thing that is in the remote controls that we've been using since the 70s and 80s. So you can see the sensor holes in the track, and then you know that there's a corresponding one above it. Now, Daniel has made improvements to the TrackMate capture system so that the lights on the infrareds don't have to be perfectly lined up, and they cascade a wider field. But the idea that there's a thought that maybe there would be some reflective properties that could interrupt the lights. Number one, infrared technology doesn't work that way. Infrared can be refracted a little bit through the pane of the acrylic piece right here, but most of it goes through, and it doesn't really get reflected very well either. But the principle behind this is that if you were using your remote to turn on your TV, and the acceptor on the TV and the infrared on your remote were on, this is a constant infrared. And so the reason why laps are counted is because you're breaking the infrared plane. You can obviously see I took a very tall car because of the Easter egg that I left behind, being the camera underneath it. And so I needed to test that the camera wasn't going to be hanging too low. But when you go underneath, if you listen for the beep, of course, that's the first lap of the day, so it's the fastest lap. But now notice something very interesting, and this is important because of what I said about passing light versus refracting light versus also the fact that this is a constant infrared. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. And nothing happens. And the reason nothing happens is because all manufacturers of infrared remotes, even back in the day, didn't even used to cover the infrared bulb at the front of the remote. And if they did, they covered it with a piece of Lexan plastic, the same as it's on the front of your TV. So it's not that the thought process isn't there to test the theory, but as you just saw right there, again, it's virtually impossible. The car brakes the plane and you hear the beep, and then you put a piece of plexiglass in between the infrared light and absolutely nothing happens. So there is no fear whatsoever for anyone to hang plexiglass or use plexiglass as a structure to create something near the TrackMate gantry. Oh, and one more thing. It also doesn't matter if the edges of this are exposed. It simply does not care. Infrared light, even the minor amount of infrared light that might be refracted and split, or that's minor reflected on the actual bezel on the edge, not a bezel on the edge, it does nothing. It does nothing to the infrared lights, no matter what angle this is. It has to be something that breaks the plane of the infrared signal. Here we are with our beautiful green hues. I just love how almost vintage the cardstock makes the Rolex color look. At first I was worried that they were maybe, slightly variations in the hue, but man, it's just only adding to the sign. So here is our upright to surround the gantry. Wow, strange sounds coming in the distance. This slips over the top of the post, obviously. So we want to just use this before we put it back in play to be able to get some ideas of the size. So why not simply place it up against here and figure out exactly what we need. I'll obviously be printing at least 3 of these, one probably per block, and then I need to cover the top of the gantry and the inside of the gantry in certain places, where I'll give you another sneak peek of that, where we have the flagman. They have the flagman box coming together. We now have a set of stairs inside there for the flagman box, so that as someone were to enter here, they would be able to step up and walk into and step up and stand here. And then if you put a 32nd scale figure, albeit a trophy presenter, he's tall enough. Shoot, maybe he's too tall. Maybe he's too tall and he'll fall over the gantry. I'm just kidding. Nobody's going down onto the track. Anyway, there you go. You can see that set of stairs coming up there. So this foam is the gift that just keeps on giving. So I'm going to go ahead and just create ever so slightly, just not necessarily overlap, I don't think by any means, but I'm just going to create as much of an edge as I can and just get these things glued to the point where, if I have to take some marker, a felt marker or something, and come across the edges, I'll be happy to do that. That's not a problem. And so for now, we just want to go ahead, and I think I'm just going to bring that all the way down, since I know I'm going to need another one. As long as that doesn't have any curves or strange curves, I'll be all right. As long as it doesn't have any strange edge to it. Now, I did fail myself for a moment there, though, because I just realized I wasn't completely on my backer. There we go. And this is one that is going to be less likely to have to be true to form, because the bottoms of these are going to be up against the carpeted area underneath, and I want there to be a little bit of give and take with the vibrations of the track. So I'm not necessarily aiming for these to be exact. I need to like I've said many a times, like many folks have said many a times that I've heard from Boone, others, doing track diorama, don't throw anything away, right? Don't throw anything away. So this right here, listen, that's laser printer ink and that's cardstock. That could be worth something. You never know where that might be needed. All right, so you can see now we have one side glued on there. Lovely. Towers coming together. Box tower, whatever you want to call it. It's a bit wide to call it just a tower. There's our 2.5 right there. Can always do just a little bit of cleanup if you see it, right? If you see it's needed. Stuff is so easy to work with that you just might find you need to do a little bit of work. All right, back to where we were. Looking at a 1/2 inch by 2.5. All right, I almost forgot. So in this instance, we're going to wrap this around and we're going to hot glue this back together. So we're not going to put this on here. We don't want to start flexing this. We're going to glue this on in place, but we can continue to work on these parts. This will be a piece that'll have to be custom to fit around there. Then this piece will go on afterwards. So we actually want to test fit this with the piece on the back. Suppose I could put this piece on here too as well. All right, now we're ready to place this back in. We got our hot glue. We got our spray adhesive. We got all of our other parts to go ahead and put this piece together on the back side. Again, keeping in mind some concepts we talk about where we will make a photo that will go on the back here that will perhaps imply a race director situation, or at least a technical inspection area with some windows passing through there, and then a door that will sit right about here where you can imagine someone's coming up to the flagman area. So let's start by getting this wrapped around, and we'll close in here so we can share what this is going to look like here as we make our way through the process. Maybe slightly moving the camera off to the side. Now, before we go ahead and glue, we're going to double check our work. Making sure our cardstock is not going to interfere, right? Nice, no problems whatsoever. All right, just make sure we've got best efforts lined up. It's really what counts here. And then we will get some leverage to glue that back together. I think I might start out actually with a piece of plexiglass behind there. I'm going to try and find a clean piece. Doesn't have too much junk stuck to it. There we go. This might do the trick here. Actually, we're getting a decent bit of leverage right there already from this piece. So I think I'm actually going to glue back in that direction so that I have more room to slip that piece down in front of it. So I think we're going to leave it alone. I take it back. Let's glue, folks. Don't worry about those little guys, right? Don't worry about those little spider webs that come along. I'm really going to go back and hit this up. I need a new glue. I need a new one. It's not ready yet for me though. It's not quite able to grab onto the new stick. So I'm just going to have to keep going with what I have for now. Awesome stuff. All right, now it's time to get intricate. We'll keep our glue gun hot and ready for the next one. But I believe we can get all of this out of the way for the time being. So we've got all of our pre-cut pieces, so it's just a matter of putting the puzzle together. Here's our piece that's going to come in front, right? So test fit again. Make sure we're happy with what's going on. And there's that piece. Test fit the side. This one might have to lose just a fraction of it. Maybe not. Maybe we like the snug fit after all. Not sure. Maybe we'll definitely be taking some off of that one. And then we've got our intricate piece on the top where we're going to split this guy around here. And hopefully it's not too terrible a deal to get in there one too many times. I'll have to hopefully test fit it only once. I don't want to really hurt the ink that's on here, so we'll start by putting this piece in. I think I'm actually maybe going to trim that piece just a fraction. Yep, I think I'm going to trim that piece just a fraction on the top. All right, we're coated and loaded. Let's carefully get this in here. Can't really do it much different than that. That is exactly what we're looking for. This piece is going to be intricate. I tried to create a set of lines that would allow me to put this on here in a test fit environment that wouldn't create too much. And I've got to hope that I've got the measurements right, because I really don't want to fold this too many times, making my way around here. Right, so hopefully I've got it. I can always cut it again if I have to. Definitely going to be taking some off of this one. All right, here we go again. Load it up. And you know what? That might take damage over the course of time, but the fact that we have the foam inside of there, it's doing exactly what we want it to do, right? We don't want cars to really be knocking themselves against that and damaging them. So we've done the best of both worlds. And hey, if it takes an accident or two, that only adds to the character. This is just doing exactly exactly what I expected it to do. This is amazing. If I do say so myself. All right, let's try and do the intricate one. I might even have to move the camera a little bit here. I might need to create an angle that I can get in here better, and you guys can either watch me do this well or watch me screw it up. Sorry, Mr. Bamboo. You're going to have to get out of the way for a moment. Well, I don't know about you folks, but that's a green box to me. Why don't we back up? Otherwise known as zooming out. There you go. Well, it's not overly fancy. It's a green box. But I'll tell you something, it adds to the finishing touches otherwise here. And this is really starting to come together now. Well, thanks for watching part 2. Part 3 will tie the whole thing together, but there was a major bit of construction there in part 2, obviously. So hope you stay with us. If you like this kind of content, subscribe, turn on those notifications. You will know when part 3 is out. And share this and comment. There's a lot more diorama coming on. We got a lot of room to do, a lot of fun projects ahead of us on that track as far as diorama. Thanks for watching.
If you don't subscribe to Hobbit Racing, I'll poke you with my staff. Pokey, pokey, pokey. She will poke you with her staff. Pokey!